Hey, JD here. Welcome to the Mead House. You know, over the past several years, we've brought you over 125 episodes of mead making, education, information, and entertainment. More than 80 guests have stopped by the Mead House. Professional mead makers, medal-winning home mead makers, competition organizers, experts on yeast and honey specialists have all visited to share their knowledge. The Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. You can help support the Mead House by joining the Mead House Keyholder Club on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com and search for the Mead House. There's also a link in the show notes. For as little as $2 a month, you can become a key holder. We've teamed up with some great companies to provide thank you gifts for your support. So get on over to Patreon, join the Mead House Keyholder Club, and get your own set of keys to the Mead House. Hey, you can listen to the Mead House podcast with your favorite player and be sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes or your favorite listening venue. The Mead House. Mead making entertainment you just don't want to miss. Laney Honey Company began as a beekeeping hobby in the 1970s by owner Dave Laney. In 1982, like so many others in manufacturing, Dave's job just up and disappeared. In order to survive financially, Dave and his wife decided to further develop their honey hobby into a small business. They expanded their operation to include varietals beyond the wildflower honey that they were selling. Today, the Laneys continue to offer as many unique varietal honeys as they can. Their Indiana bees produce wildflower, dune country, goldenrod, autumn wildflower, and they continue to work with other beekeepers to get the floral-sourced honeys that their customers prefer, like clover, locust blossom, buckwheat, and a whole lot more. See their list of available honeys at laneyhoney.com, and be sure and see their list of stores they currently market to, laneyhoney.com. Thank you for your support with the 2019 Iron Bee. Hey, welcome to the Mead House, and thanks for listening to episode number 134. You can catch the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, iHeartRadio. There's just a whole list. They're all listed on the website. Hey, the Mead House is produced for home mead makers and brewers looking for a bit of inspiration and information from the many guests and discussions we have here at the house. Hey, you can talk to us. We're on Facebook, Twitter. We're both at the Mead House. Or you can just email us at info@themeadhouse.com. Jeff and Ryan are both seated at the bar. My name is JD Webb. Hey, last episode in segment 2, I told you that we were going to talk oatmeal cookies, chocolate chip peanut butter cookies, peach and apple pies, but it didn't involve cookie sheets or cake pans, more like fermenters and carboys. Tonight, instead of sending you off to Amaretti for some inspiration, we thought we'd bring Amaretti to you with returning guest Deborah Coletti. In segment 2, Vaclary's Horn update, and then Braggus. Jeff's going to fill us in a little bit from the BJCP guidelines on just exactly what a braggot is, and then Ryan's going to lead us in a discussion on how to put one together. Is not just necessarily combining honey and malt. There's several ways that we can accomplish that. And then capsamels. What are those? Hey, and then segment 3, Facebook friends. Of course, this is where we try to answer questions from our Facebook friends with no formal expertise other than what we've experienced in our own brew house. All that and more here at the Mead House. But first, thanks to all the Mead House key holders who help keep the Mead House podcast free. You too can become a Mead House key holder and help support the show for as little as $2 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts to send you. Get on over to patreon.com, search for the Mead House, or you can just click on the link in the show notes. What are we drinking tonight? I'm double fisting it tonight in Mead House tradition. In my first fist, I pulled a sample out of the 3-gallon oak barrel that has the blackcurrant and plum port mead. Now, it's been in there for, a good 3-4 months now. Now, that bourbon barrel had 3 gallons of bourbon in it for about 3 to 4 months. Seasoning up that barrel, nothing was in it prior to that. And so I dumped the port mead in there, the blackcurrant and plum. And I tell you, this thing is just amazing. I love it. It's not as alcoholic as your typical ports are that you get from your typical ports, but it's very smooth. It's fruity. The black currant, the plum is definitely there. This one was fortified with brandy. It also is coming through. I'm getting a little hint of the bourbon barrel. The char on the barrel itself is coming through. This thing is really coming together nicely. I got about another 3 to 4 months to go yet inside that barrel before we pull it out and bottle it. And in my second hand, guys, I'm drinking a Scotch ale that I put together, a Scotch Braggot ale. And this is I think, the third sampling that I pulled. Just about a 6-7 ounce pour. And my first taste of it, initially, I was a little disappointed. Now I use 4 ounces of the smoky peat. I'm not going to go through the whole list of steeping grains that I put in it, but it did have the 4 ounces of that smoky peaty malt, and it wasn't enough. I get just a hint, not even. I mean, if you didn't know it was in there, you probably wouldn't tell. But because I know it's in there, I can kind of look for it and I can detect it. So I wasn't real happy with that. Besides that, the flavors, unbelievable. There's a little bit of sweetness right up front. It finishes a little bit on the dry side. The caramels are coming through. I love this. I mean, if even without the smoked peated malt, this would be an outstanding braggot. So I'm even considering bottling this thing up and maybe sending it off to a couple of competitions. A little early yet because right now it's sitting on a honeycomb oak that was soaked in cognac. And it's not quite finished yet, but I am picking up little hints of the cognac, little hints of that wood coming through, but it's far from being done. So don't know whether I can get this thing done in time for Valkyrie's Horn or not, but hey, we'll give it a shot. So with that, hey, let's move on. Jeff, what did you put in your glass tonight, bud?
Well, I heard we were talking about braggots, so I poured myself a couple braggots. In the one hand, I've got a glass of what I believe is Ryan's. It had a little sticker on the cap that said, I think, DRK BRD.
A dark braggot.
Mm-hmm. It
Pretty
is
simple label.
yeah, very simple, straight to the point. It's dark brown bordering on black and opaque as all get out. It has a very long-lasting kind of tan brown head, very durable. It's got a good amount of carbonation to it that I appreciate. The nose has some roastiness. I'm not sure about the honey character so much, but it's almost got like a kind of a fruity, kind of tangy scent to it as well. On the first sip, I'm getting. It's funny. There's the roastiness that I would expect from a dark beer, whether it's a porter or a stout, but there's also kind of a fruity tanginess that brightens it up and makes it actually kind of lively for a darker beer. So it's lighter in body than it's lighter in character, not quite body, but it feels like it's not heavy, despite being, by all appearances, pretty heavy. And it finishes nicely. It's got a kind of a lingering taste in that tartness as well. Ryan, what went into this?
This is a Fauché braggot. So you're getting some of that tanginess possibly, or some of that from the caramelized honey, and really used a lot of, I don't have it in front of me, I think it was like black malt and roasted barley as kind of those grains to darken it. And then if this is again, I don't have my book in front of me, but I think I used like a dark monastic or a dark Belgian yeast with this, which could have also added to some of those fruity esters that you're tasting. This is one that I really enjoy. This one typically gets pretty good reviews whenever I take out a bottle and pour it around.
Yeah, it's very yummy and pleasant. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. My other glass is actually one of mine. It's the Saison Braggot that I made a second batch of last summer. And if you guys remember, this is the one that I played with a lot. My first Saison Braggot I was pretty pleased with. I changed up the yeast and used the Space Ale. I think it's BE134. And then aged it on some Spanish cypress and used some smoked peppercorns that I got from Mountain Rose. And, I'm not saying this is bad, but I think if I had a little bit more caution into throwing so many different unknown elements into it, I might have made it a little bit better, because there's just a little bit of a kind of a lingering bitterness that I didn't get out of that first batch. And I'm not sure if that's from the peppercorns or from that Spanish cedar. The cedar it's not oak. It doesn't have that oaky character that's going to round things out quite the same. So there's kind of something that lingers on the palate, and it's not the most pleasant flavor. So I think this could have ended up better if I had played a little bit more caution. And just, been a little bit more circumspect as to what I was throwing in the brew. Still pretty good. Still pleased with it. But I think if I go back and do this a third time, I'm probably going to be a little bit more circumspect with what I put in there. Probably to keep it a little bit more simple this time.
All right.
So, Ryan, what's in your glass?
Yeah, Ryan, what's in your glass?
I'm doing a Braggot tonight as well, but I am doing the mixed style of Braggot. So I've got a bottle of a very bitter IPA and then a bottle of semi-sweet, and am blending them right in the cup, trying to figure out the right kind of proportions. Now, the reason I'm doing this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in segment 2, is that I don't make a lot of Braggots that have, just honey exuding out of the glass. It's I wouldn't say that my Braggots are more along the lines of, say, a Hop Slam, which, Bell's Hop Slam Brewery, they use honey just as additional fermented sugar to get the gravity up without adding any real honey flavoring or essence. I wouldn't say it's that extreme, but a lot of the Braggots I've had are, super honey forward, and I don't usually make a lot of those. So when I want one, I do it. I blend them. I blend a traditional with a beer and figure that out. So Jeff, the Braggot that he's having is about as honey forward as a Braggot that I typically make. Maybe there's one that's a little bit different just because it doesn't have caramelized honey in it. It's got raw honey, but that's about the most amount of honey I put into them. Anyway, we'll get a little bit more into that in segment 2. But as JD said, returning tonight is our good friend Deborah Coletti from Amaretti. Deborah manages the craft beverage division of Amaretti. Again, while they started as a pastry ingredient company, Deborah had the opportunity to develop a team of people who specialize in helping brewers, distillers, cider, and mead makers to bring their imagination to life through flavor development. We've talked quite a bit about their lineup in the past, and thought it would just make sense to have her back on the show to make sure that we are not tipping the canoe and figuring out how to make these the best way possible. Welcome back, Deborah. And what's in your cup tonight?
Thank you. I did not get the Braggot memo, so I am just drinking a pale ale. But I am drinking a mango habanero pale ale, and it is fantastic. Really fruit forward, and you get kind of that spice at the back of your throat right as you swallow. It's delicious.
Oh, it sounds good.
Yes.
Excellent.
Wow.
Peppers have always been really tough to balance. There's a local brewery here that had a habanero cream ale, and I love the idea, but I always say I'm kind of a medium salsa guy, and if you go much hotter than like medium salsa grade heat, sometimes it gets tough for me. So it was great in a sample flight, but I don't know if I could have done a pint of it.
Right. I mean, it's really a trick. You can go to Great American Beer Festival and you get that pepper beer that like literally burns your throat as you drink it. It's probably the silliest place to drink it because then you can't taste any other beer you try the entire rest of the time. But when you do a pepper beer, it's really the trick is getting it hot enough for the people that like spice to have it, but you want to make a beer that people want to have more than one of. So it can never be too spicy. It needs to be on the lighter sides of spice. You can balance it a lot of times with fruit. Tangerine, mango, blood oranges are all really good flavor profiles that can balance off that heat, and that helps bring down the spice of it, but you can still taste the flavor.
Oh, well, we didn't tell you this ahead of time, but later on in segment 2, we're going to talk about capsamels or pepper meads, and this is you're giving some great advice right into that. So you didn't get the Braggot memo, but you got the clairvoyance on the capsamels.
It's part of the competition, right? I did read that about the Valkyrie competition. That is, yeah, absolutely.
So
it's a difficult flavor profile. I mean, that's a spice that you have to get right, otherwise you will burn people's tongue.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, Deborah, to kick it off, what is what's new with you, or what's new with Amaretti since we last spoke?
Right now, honestly, we are seeing a huge trend into hard seltzers and non-alcoholic beers and such. So it's actually been a very interesting time. We actually spent some time in Europe, and we're learning a lot about the 0.0 beers that they're making over there. Now I've seen the trend come here. So now I'm getting consistent requests of, okay, how can I make beer taste like beer but have no alcohol in it, or very low alcohol? Obviously, it's a very responsible part as far as sober drivers and things like that, but we all also want to be able to enjoy a beer that tastes like a beer and not something that tastes like water. So it has been very interesting. Hard seltzers are another one. Obviously, it's few and far between where you find one that's not flavored. So obviously, it's a conversation we probably have 20, 30 times a day with our customers.
I'm in Minneapolis, and there's something like 150 breweries in Minnesota. Most of them are the tap room kind of brewery, and man, I'd say most of them around me have at least one hard seltzer on tap.
Yep.
And that is, absolutely.
It's the trend,
Yeah. So Deborah, what we wanted to talk a little bit, we've seen more and more meads are going into, I guess, what you'd call the experimental category, at least by BJCP guidelines. Things like banana bread meads, or pistachio Oreo cookie meads, or chocolate bacon meads, and a lot of different flavors. I think blueberry pancake meads. And as I think JD we were talking at HomebrewCon once, I think at Club Night, we did see a guy put a German chocolate cake right in secondary. But for those who don't want to do that, we're talking about how to design something that's kind of experimental and how to go about putting it together. Now, the last time you were here, we talked about sometimes the best times to add some of the amaretti ingredients are at the later stages of fermentation. I want to make sure I got that right. Am I tracking with you so far?
Absolutely, yes.
So if we were to go about making some sort of a mead with experimental flavors, and you and I were talking all about how to put together an Oreo cookie pistachio mead, or the pistachio Oreo that I've come to love so much into a mead. And we did start out with like a braggot base. You had recommended starting with like a white stout, and I got a nice white stout dialed in, and I've got the pistachio. I think it's the compound. I think it's pistachio compound, and then now the cookies and cream extract. And I've got the white stout fermenting away. But now as we get into that, I'm looking at this bottle of extract, and the first thing I see is on the back. It says drink level use, about 1.5 ounces per 111 gallons.
Correct.
How does a home brewer think about how much should I using am I using like an eyedropper, or how should I best think about using these extracts in, say,
go
a
back to
5-gallon
chemistry
batch?
class. Yeah, you're in chemistry class. You're using that little pipette. That's exactly what you would use. The benefit to the extract is that because there are no sugars in there, you're not worried about fermentation. So for the stout that you're making, if you're adding the cookies and cream during fermentation, like suggested, because it has sugar, let it do its fermentation, get the flavor profile where you need it to be, and then once fermentation is done and you can taste the beer, you can now add the extract as needed. So you can add, go off of our baseline, but start on the lower end of our suggestion, put in a few drops, mix the beer, taste it, and you can add as needed. Because there's no sugars in there, that's why you could do that. Normally, you would need to ferment off sugars. So when you're doing combination flavors during fermentation, you kind of have to get it accurate from the get-go. The great thing about an extract is it can be added after the fact, so you can always add more. You want to err on the side of caution because you can go overboard with an extract very easily because they are very strong.
Now, if you're using an extract and you're putting in your drops into your batch, is that flavor, when you taste it, am I tasting it immediately, and is that the flavor that I can expect throughout, or do I need to say let it kind of come together over the course of a day or a day and a half, and then taste it, see if we need to add more?
It's actually flavor specific. It's kind of a unique idea. If you put a pepper in there, I would say yes. You need it to let it sit for a few days. Peppers develop their flavor over time as they kind of soak up all of the filament that's in the beer and anything that's left in there. So a pepper beer will taste differently on day one than it will a couple days down the line. But once you get to about 3 or 4 days, that should be the flavor profile that you'll have for the rest of the time that before the beer is drank. But if you're talking about like a peanut or a nut, you'll still get that. But when you're talking about most fruits, or in this case, when we're talking about the pistachio, because it's the lighter end of the nuts, you'll be fine. But when you add it, as long as you've mixed it all the way through, it's going to taste the same on day one as it is 10 days from now.
Okay. Now, I'm using this as an example, but I'm trying to broaden out, what we could talk about. So here, in this specific example, we're talking about 2 different flavors. What kind of advice do you have in terms of blending on maybe it's 2 or 3 different flavors together. So in this case, it's the cookies and cream and the pistachio. But if you wanted to do, like I said, chocolate or bacon or maple syrup and banana or things like that, how do you start thinking about blending those flavors together?
So the important part is to look at how strong the flavor profile is. So if you're talking about banana, it's a very mild flavor. If you're talking about raspberry, it's a pretty strong flavor. So what I would do is blend them on the side before you even add them to beer and kind of get the right ratio that you think works. So in this situation, pistachio is going to come out much stronger than the cookies and cream. So what I would do is I would bump up the level of cookies and cream, use that on our higher end of our use level, and use the pistachio at the lower end of our use level. Whenever you combine flavors too, you do need to cut back on the use level because you do already have 2 flavors going. So if we suggest 4 ounces for 5 gallons, you should be using 2 ounces of each, but now ratio it out. So if in this situation, I would say use more cookies and cream and less pistachio. So if I'm suggesting you use 4 ounces of cookies and cream for a 5-gallon batch, use 3 ounces of the cookies and cream, and then supplement with the pistachio for the remainder. Unfortunately, you're using 2 different product lines, so it's not an easy 4 ounce to 1 ounce, 3 ounce to 1 ounce. The extract is so much more concentrated. But you have to figure out the science. You have to look at, okay, how much would I use at full value, and then let me cut that into a quarter. And then on the cookies and cream, what's the full value? Okay, I should only use 3/4 of that.
I'm tracking with you, Deborah. I'm tracking with you, but it's been about 20 years since I took math for liberal arts majors.
I get it. So ironically enough, I was putting in a customer's order yesterday while I was helping my son do homework, and he was basically saying, like, I don't understand why I need this math, Mom. And I was like, this is exactly why you need this math. This customer needs 60 pounds, and it comes in an 8-pound container. How many containers do we need to get there? So anyway, yeah, it is. So basically, it is the fraction. So if in this case, you would want to use 3/4 of what is suggested of the cookies and cream and 1/4 of what is suggested of the pistachio, because that's about the ratio that you would need.
Now we're talking. Now, mind you, I went to school and we still use pencils. We're talking 2 different ingredients here. We're talking about an extract, and what's the other compound that we're talking about?
It's an artisan. It was a pistachio artisan.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess I could simplify it if we were using artisan to artisan. In this scenario, the 4 ounces is suggested for the 5 gallons. So for the cookies and cream, I would suggest 3 ounces, and then the pistachio, I would suggest 1 ounce.
And for our listeners out there that are going to listen to this, you go to their website, Amaretti.com, and it's going to be under our products. Go to Artisan Natural Flavors, and then the extract right there at the top, under baking, pastry, and savory. Ryan, I just wanted to point that out. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, no, and now, Deborah, when I first asked you about the cookies and cream, I did say, should I use the compound or the artisan, the artisan cookies and cream? I think it was, and you said no. I think the extract would be better because the cookies and cream is hard to work with. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I cut you off?
Yes, sure. No, you're totally right. So
this is what I want to get at, because our listeners, as they look at your line and they're trying to decide what to use, what should they keep in mind? I won't give them your number or email address unless you want me to, but assuming they don't have your telephone number or email address, what are the guidelines that they should kind of follow in picking the different product lines, for their beverage making?
There are probably 8 or 9 of our products that I would suggest an extract over an artisan. And that's only because of how thick the product is. So our chocolate fudge brownie is absolutely delicious, but it is really hard to use in beer. You need to melt it and then let it cool before you add it. Cool and add it before it gets cold or warm again. And I mean, it's easier just to use an extract. So there's a few of our products. Cookies and cream is a good example as well. It's a thicker product. The best suggestion I can give you is that if you are placing an order on our website, there's a little spot that says ask a question or note. And if you put a note in there and just say, is this good for beer? My web team will see that note and they will shoot me an email. They will shoot someone else on my staff an email and say, hey, can you look at this order and make sure the customer is ordering the right thing? And we will absolutely do it. And probably 5 or 6 times a day, I look at orders and I send customers emails and I say, hey, are you using this for beer? I wouldn't really suggest this. Maybe we have a better option for you. With 3,000 products, it happens often.
Okay.
Yeah. People are starting. Go ahead.
Can I want to kind of play a devil's advocate here because there are suggested amounts on all these products, like the artisan compounds. Generally, we were talking about 4 ounces for a 5-gallon batch. Strictly devil's advocate here, but if somebody wanted to throw caution to the wind and really wanted an intense flavor, would they have any negative drawbacks if they wanted to use maybe 2 or 3 times that recommended amount? Would they risk any off flavors or like weird body or consistency issues with the meats or beers in that case?
Yeah, in an artisan, no, you wouldn't really. With an extract, you would. An extract, you can go overboard very, very quickly. But with an artisan, the flavor profiles are so pleasant. They were originally designed to go into ice cream, and so they were made so that if they didn't swirl all the way into the ice cream and you got a straight bite of it, it wouldn't be too much. So you absolutely could, but you also now run the risk of, are you making a beer or are you making shandy? So if you put too much grapefruit into a beer and it tastes like grapefruit juice, if that's what you're going for, then that's fantastic. So that's really what's going to happen is you're going to get more on the juice side, more on that shandy type flavor or a beer cocktail and less of the actual beer flavor.
Okay.
People are starting to talk about Amaretti more and more. I see that, people are mentioning it. I think people are, like me, they don't want to deal with the mess of, dumping 10, 15 pounds of fruit into your fermentation bucket or whatever you're using, and then having to deal with that mess. I mean, these flavors that you have, it seems like it's so much cleaner. The flavors are natural flavors. There's nothing artificial, because frankly, some of the, and I've done a little baking in my life, and frankly, some of the extracts that you get, in the supermarket, I mean, they're artificial flavors, and by the time you get done, I mean, they taste like artificial flavors. I don't think that's the case with Amaretti. So this is an amazingly new and different way to introduce flavors into your brew, whether it's mead or beer, whatever you're doing, braggots. I'm going to be doing a braggot here pretty soon. I just ordered some pineapple from the artisan side, actually pineapple and apricot. It's a tropical. The yeast that I'm going to use gives off, when it's fermenting it at high temperatures, gives off a very tropical flavor profile. And then the hops that I'm going to use, which I just used in a project that I'm doing now, Azacca, they also give off a very tropical flavor profile, aroma. And I thought, to go along with that, apricots and pineapple. And I can't wait to get this thing started because, I do have for secondary some grilled pineapple that I grilled up and caramelized and then cut up in little chunks and froze. But what I didn't want to do was deal with 10 or 15 pounds of pineapple in the in fermentation. And I think this is a really, really clean and a very specific way to deal with flavors. And my God, the amount of flavors. Again, Amaretti.com for our listeners out there. If you haven't seen it, you got to check this out. I didn't have a question, Deborah. I just wanted to make that statement, you know?
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it really is. It's about consistency as well. And, you know, the great thing about home brewing and, you know, doing this at home is you're not going to make the same mead or the same cider or the same beer more than once too many times, right? You always want to make the next great thing. But you know what? Maybe if you do make a really, really good batch and you want to enter it into a competition, you want to be able to recreate that flavor. And if you're going to the grocery store in May and getting the most fabulous strawberries you've ever purchased, but then you go to enter a contest in September, you're not buying the same strawberries. It doesn't matter where you're buying them from. They're not the same. So what we're offering is the strawberry you buy in May is the exact same strawberry you buy in September.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Ryan, I think I cut you off, but go ahead, man.
Yeah, as I was just perusing through the site again, so I saw the edible perfume sprays. Now, we sometimes throw, I don't know, kind of quasi fancy. I don't know what the term is for that. You know, bow tie and a t-shirt. You know, like little, you know, dinners or cocktail parties or things like that, and try to make sometimes you know, like a mixologist style cocktail. And as I was looking at these, is this now sometimes you go to a fancy bar and they're misting the glasses before they put in your gin or whatever it is that you're having. Tell me, are these edible perfume sprays? Now, could these be used in the same way? Say, if I was pouring a braggot and I just really wanted to enhance the orange that you were going to get off of that, could I just spritz the glass with, say, that orange edible perfume spray and then pour in that braggot and seem like I did something a little more magical?
That's exactly what it's for. So the first part of taste is smell. So when you take an edible perfume, which is the majority of it's alcohol, so that smell permeates through the air. So if you take an edible perfume and you spray it in the glass, that is the very first thing that they're going to smell as they're bringing that glass to their mouth. So if they're smelling in the orange, they're tasting it before it ever even hits their tongue.
Wow, I can see the wheels turning in Ryan's head. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost wondering if this something like that. And I'm just kind of spitballing here. Let's say at bottling, is this something that you might even just spritz at the right as you're bottling
into the bottle
and have it just kind of explode out once you open it up?
You could.
I don't mean explode in a fizzy way. I just mean would the aroma survive kind of being bottled for an amount of time?
It would, because it's in there, but really, if you've coated the glass with it, as the bottle moves around and the liquid swishes around the side, it's going to absorb into it. So, I mean, you're adding more flavor and more aroma into the beer itself, but not in the same manner as if you've sprayed it right before somebody drinks it. And that's really the concept behind that.
Got it. This is just point of serving, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. Point of serving. We've had people spray boxes with it. So if somebody opens a box of cheesecake or chocolates and the aroma smells, or restaurants will spray plates with it. So as they walk through a restaurant with the plate, it wafts through the restaurant. There's quite a few different ways to use those.
Wow. Wow.
Well, what are some of the more unique flavor profiles that you've been asked to come up with or that you've thought about lately?
You know, we are always asked for these very, very strange fruits that, you know, when the first time I'm asked of them, I have no idea what they are, and then you become accustomed to them. You know, there's different versions of dragon fruit. We have a very different dragon fruit here in the States than they do in Asia. Jackfruit, guanabana. These are very, very unique flavors to the areas that they're in. Right now I'm working with a brewery overseas that is they're having a soccer tournament there, so they want to make a beer designed around each country that will be there. So they're trying to do specific to country's fruits, and they're some of these I have to Google, and I mean I have no idea what they are. So that's probably the craziest we've gotten. But we are creating some unique flavor profiles again for the seltzers, because that's really what we're getting the request for. So right now we just came out with a spicy pineapple, which is pineapple and jalapeno, which is fantastic.
Oh my God. I wish I'd have known that before I placed my order. Oh my God. I'm going to have to. Yeah. Okay. That's going on the list.
And then we have a tropical blend, a Southern Charm, which is like a strawberry and watermelon, a very, very, down home kind of flavor profile. And then right now I'm working on some flavor development for some other fun ones. I think I have narrowed down blackberry vanilla bourbon, which is a really, really fun flavor. So I don't know. We'll see.
Wow.
Yep.
Cool. I've got one last one for you, Deborah, and then I don't know if the other guys might as well. We talked about aroma or smell being the first thing that part of the taste. I might debate with you just a little bit on that and say oftentimes we drink with our eyes first. And, depending, again, it's debatable. And we've seen some folks get creative with that visual aspect. And I'm thinking about a couple of fruits, in particularly watermelon and strawberry, that start out this gorgeous red color, and then through fermentation will kind of go to a straw or very light. And there have been some very accomplished mead makers that we know who have decided to bring that flavor back a little bit with some food colorings. And now you being Amaretti also have food colors. Tell us a little bit about the use of those in trying to create a visually appealing or stunning looking beverage.
Absolutely. And I do stand corrected. You're right. We do taste first with our eyes. You're absolutely right about that. The number one flavor or color that we see people purchasing is red, or a pink, or a purple, somewhere around that line. Usually for exactly what you're saying. So they're doing a raspberry, they're doing a strawberry. They want the beer to look like the fruit is in there. Our blueberry naturally gives a very, very beautiful pink color. So blueberry is often used to get that flavor, that color profile. But we do see a spike in September for October beers, for pink beers, for pink boots, and for breast cancer awareness. So that we do see this surge of pink beers that come out at that time. But then we have brewers who like to use it all year round. We have a brewer that purchases purple food color for some weird, off-kiltered idea that they came up with one day, and it just stuck. So now they have a purple beer. We have a natural green, but we actually suggest selling our alfalfa to get a green food color if you want to do something fun for St. Patrick's Day. And then that alfalfa will give you a green color, and it'll play off of the hops because it's so close in family that the flavor profile will be there and it won't change the flavor of the beer. And then occasionally we get some weird requests too. Patriots are in the Super Bowl again. Okay, we need blue beer, something like that.
Yeah, glitter. Oh, wow.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Jeff, JD, do you have any last questions or thoughts for Deborah?
I could stay here all night and talk to Deborah Coletti from Amaretti about all of the different flavors, but our show is only 90 minutes long, guys. Deborah, definitely going to have you back again. You're welcome to the Mead House at any time. Jeff, have you got anything for Deborah?
One final thought. I know we talked about Ryan's Brew, where he's combining the artisan compounds and the extracts. Let's say he wants to bottle up a couple of those and just sit them in the back of his cabinet for a year, 2 years. Is one of those going to be better than the other at retaining those flavors? Do we need to worry about flavor loss? And is one of those varieties better than the other at holding that?
The flavor will not change, except for possibly what I was talking about, the other like peppers and things like that can change over time when you first add them. If they sit for a couple of years, you would see that change in flavor. But we do say our products will last the life of the beer. So if that beer has a lifespan where you're going to bottle it and just let it sit in the cabinet for a few years, it will last that long. If you add it to a hoppier beer that only has a 3-month shelf life, it's probably the flavor will have the same shelf life.
Good to know.
Okay.
Well, I think I might have said this last time, and things are moving fast on this end. But what I'd like to do is any of our key holders go on to Patreon. If you've got any questions about putting together a weird recipe or flavor profile, shoot them to us. And then the next time that we have Deborah on, maybe we'll get into some of those specific questions. So we'll let Deborah kind of get into kind of the practicality. We'll have them ahead of time, and we'll send them to her and let them think about how to put together that blueberry pancake mead or that banana bread and walnut braggot for you.
Sounds great. I am happy to help out.
Deborah, thanks so much for stopping by the Mead House. Again, Amaretti.com. If you have not been there, you got to check this out. This is a new and interesting way to incorporate different flavors into your meads, your beers, your brews, without. And this is the part I love, okay? Because I the older I get less tolerant with things, and I hate cleaning up the mess. And when you're left with 15, 20 pounds of used up blueberries or blackberries or whatever, I mean, it's just a mess to have to deal with. But if I can just get the flavor in a little jar and have the same impact, Amaretti.com is where you need to go. And thank you so much again, Deborah, for stopping by. Again, welcome to the house anytime.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Good talking to you tonight.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Guys, I couldn't be more serious. I mean, the older I get, the less tolerant I get about a lot of things. I don't want to waste a lot of time cleaning up messes that I really didn't want to deal with in the first place. And, every time I go to the Amaretti, I keep coming up with new ideas, new flavor, profiles. They were a big help, with this one braggot that I want to do. Of course, I've got a whole list of projects, but some are floating to the top quicker than others. And one of them is this tropical braggot that I want to do using this new hop that I found. Well, it's not new. It's been around for a while, but this Azacca hop.
The Azaccas.
Yeah. I mean, it's got this tropical from start to finish, from bittering to aroma. It's a dual use hop. I can't wait. Well, I've already used it in the one that I'm doing now. It's not quite a tropical braggot that I had intended on, but it's another project that I wanted to put together, which is right now fermenting at 96.4 degrees. Just wanted to throw that out there for you disbelievers. And it's chugging along like a freight train, believe me. But these Amaretti flavors, guys, I think brings a whole new dimension to adding flavors without having to deal with the mess. I just want to home in on that. Ryan, I know you've been there. Jeff, I know you've been there. Pounds of fruit, Go ahead.
I've got a job. I've got a family to feed. I get home from work and, I got to make dinner. I got to get the kiddo to brush his teeth and take a bath and get to bed. And then, after that, I got to wash the dishes. Adding the cutting up, cleaning, and preparing 20 pounds of strawberries, man, that's an extra hour and a half out of my night I could be doing something else with.
Yeah.
Anything you can do to save time and effort is a great way to just make the hobby a little bit more enjoyable for you. Unless that's really your thing and you really enjoy just getting your fingers dirty with the fruit, more power to you. But I'm all for finding a great shortcut that doesn't, deplete the quality of your end product.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, segment 2, guys. We're going to talk a little bit more about braggots. Now, there's a reason why we kind of talk a lot about braggots here at the Mead House, and we'll get to that here in just a little bit. And then, Ryan, we're also going to talk about capsule melons. Now, I got to tell you, the hothead in my house is my wife. She loves hot sauce, any kind. She loves the stuff that comes in the little jar, like the Tabasco sauces and whatnot. She's also a big fan of really hot salsas. So, I'm like you. I prefer the mild stuff, but that's just me and my belly. Before we get to that, hey, the Bottle Keeper. Hey, there's a story here somewhere, and it involves a cousin and his uncle at the beach sipping warm beer from those ever so popular red cups. Now, I've been there. You've been there. Hell, we've all been there. Nothing worse than drinking warm beer on a hot day at the beach, in the backyard, or you name the place. The story goes, as the cousin and uncle were contemplating their dilemma, quote, a golden light flashed above cousin Matt's head as if Zeus himself had sent a bolt of lightning from the heavens above. And he said aloud, what if we could leave the beer in the bottle and put the bottle in something that would keep it cold, like one of those stainless steel water bottles? Talk about an epiphany. BottleKeeper.com has the first best choice to keep your single bottle cold, no matter where you are. Made to fit virtually every beer bottle made, from Stubbies to Bombers, Bottle Keeper has your preferred size. Check out the epiphany yourself. BottleKeeper.com. And hey, Adam, Matt, tell the gang the Mead House says thanks for supporting the 2019 Iron Bee. Braggots. Jeff, I wanted to start this segment off. I want our listeners to understand, one, why we talk about them so much here on the show, because you can give a great perspective from a judge's point of view. Also, sure. The BJCP guidelines, just, one more time, I get the blending, the harmonious and all that, but let's get it right from the BJCP and what we're dealing with here. So the mic is yours.
So, the brass tacks of this is that the BJCP defines a braggot as a mead made with malt. And that's about as specific as they get. There are a few things that they require you to list when you enter a mead into competition. You have to define the carbonation level, you have to define the strength of the alcohol, and you have to define the sweetness or dryness. But that's it. You can define a base style of the beer you're using with your braggot. You can define a honey varietal that you're using with it, but you're not beholden to. And this is one of the great things about the braggot category, is that it is very, very inclusive. You can make a braggot that's based on a popular beer style. You can make a braggot that is kind of just your own creation. You want to throw in your malt variety of choice and your hop variety of choice. You're not even required to add hops. It just needs to have a level of honey and a level of malt, and they should both be present. And we talk about a harmonious blend. That doesn't mean that they are equal. One can be stronger than the other, but they both have to be there and they have to play nice together. That's about it.
So there's a myth out there. Let me interrupt a minute. There's a myth out there about it having to be 51% of one or the other, or 50% of one or the other. That's pure malarkey, right?
Most competitions that I've entered, most competitions that I've judged at, they have never required a recipe like in brass tacks, X amount of honey, Y amount of malt, to be included with that entry. I'm not saying that none of them do. There may be one or two that do, but the majority of them don't. So
there's
at the end
nothing.
of the day,
there's nothing in the BJCP guidelines that specifies the percent of fermentables that must come from honey or malt.
Yeah,
right. At the end of the day, you are the only one that's going to know your percentages unless you go telling people. They do specify that products with a relatively low proportion of honey should possibly be entered as an alternative sugar beer in a beer category as opposed to a braggot. But that's really all they have to say about it in any shape or form. You're left with a quite wide field of what you could consider a quantity of appropriate honey versus malt. As long as they are, like I said, they're playing nice together, they are a complementary, amount. I think the field is wide open, and I think they almost have to declare it that way, because if you consider the difference between, like, saying, well, let's look at a Pilsner braggot, you would probably have relatively less honey to compete with that very light malty character versus a porter or a stout that has a lot of malt character to it. You would want more honey in your mouth just so that honey shows up and doesn't get lost. You're either going to need to have a very strong varietal honey or a lot of it, one way or the other. So playing in absolutes doesn't work because there is such a wide field of different ingredients at play here. And I think that is, that's also part of the attractiveness of this category. There are so many different kinds of honey, like we've talked about so many times, and there are so many different varieties of malts. There are so many different base styles of beer that you could take inspiration from. And I think Ryan talked about this 2 or 3 episodes back. There are those that would say, well, I'm going to make let's take my example for brass tacks. Well, I'm going to make a Saison braggot. And so there are those that would say, well, I'm going to make this as faithful to a Saison with a little bit of honey character to it as I can. And that's good and fine. There are also those that I think, the route Ryan was suggesting and the route I would suggest as well, take an inspiration from a Saison braggot and do your own thing with it. Make it the drink you want to make. Now, that may lose you some points if you declare it as a Saison braggot, and it doesn't quite fit that category. But at the end of the day, you do have to kind of decide whether you're making a drink for a competition or you're making a drink for yourself. This Saison braggot is a perfect example. I'm not going to enter this into a competition because it's not strictly a braggot anymore. It's been spiced. It's been aged on cypress. It's got stuff that would make it experimental more than a braggot. And I could enter it at that, but I'm just not as crazy about it as I could be. So,
can I jump in there, Jeff?
Please do.
Because this is what you're saying is, I completely agree with everything you're saying, which is a great way to start a phrase, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen competitions that basically, as long as it has malt in it, they consider it a braggot. So I've seen things like coffee braggots or shandy braggots or things, like you're saying, things that, depending on the way that you read the rules, would move it into a experimental category. I've seen things meddle in braggot categories that are, that are kind of more like experimental beers or like spice and vegetable beers or fruit beers. Mm-hmm. If you're looking at the beer guidelines, so I'll go back a step. I saw one, I think it was, like coffee spiced braggot or coffee and spice braggot. I forget exactly what it was, but it won, a medal in the braggot category, and this it obviously had malt in it, and that was it. So I think there is some ambiguity on the judging level where a lot of people simply just say, hey, look, if it's got malt, it belongs to the braggot category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there is a level of ambiguity there. I mean, if you look at the BJCP guidelines as stated, they show that you should have malt, you should have honey, and optionally hops. They make some allowances for smokiness in cases like the base style of beer has some smoke in it. They make a case for oak. And beyond that, other ingredients they suggest should probably go in the experimental category. That said, in practice, there are plenty of varieties of beer that we find in, like our local liquor store that it's not uncommon to have coffee in. The coffee porters, coffee stouts.
Yeah.
I could definitely make a case for including coffee in a beer style, just as a base style. So I think in practice, there's definitely some levity there, some give and take, some pull, to include other things other than those ingredients, especially if you've got an established beer style that has those in it. It may not be the 200-300-year-old traditional German Hefeweizen or the classic styles, but if you can find a beer in practice that has that style in it, whether it's a little fruit, a little coffee, whatever, we're in a craft beer, craft beverage renaissance, and I think that I would, as a judge, be willing to give a little leverage there, and I can't speak for every BJCP judge ever, but I could definitely make a case for it.
Before I turn it over to Ryan for Valkyrie's Horn update, one of the reasons why we talk so much about braggots here, there's kind of a mission that we're set out on here, and it's a style of mead that I enjoy the most over any other style. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy other meads that are not braggots. That's not the case at all. But I think, we're trying to do our part here at the Mead House to push this category that is so, I don't know, Ryan, I don't want to use the word abused, but it's a category of mead that is not produced a lot. I don't know if it's because people have some difficulty with it or whatever the reasons might be. But it's a category that needs to be judged upon itself with other braggots, not with other different styles or different categories of mead. That's kind of my thing about this whole thing. I mean, besides, I love braggots. I mean, I love them. So,
I think one of the reasons that they might be less popular, and this is just pure conjecture, is that braggots are very rare to find commercially.
Yeah.
Most meaderies operate under a winery license,
right?
Meaning that they can't even have malt on their premise, and so most meaderies can't use malt. They're not making braggots. Breweries are most oftentimes, they might make a honey beer, but they're not, sometimes they'll call it a braggot style or something like that. But it's just not a style that you see commercially very often. That might have something to do with it. That not seeing it commercially very often is because of the legal standards. Okay, Valkyrie's Horn, guys, and ladies. The registration is open. The registration's only been open as I'm recording this for a few days, and it's got 200 entries. I'm looking right now as I'm recording this, and 199 entries to be exact. I looked at the breakdown of entries. This is a few days ago. And the braggot category is probably pretty comparable to a lot of other category, of other competitions. So there are braggots that are entered right now. Now, again, there's, I think, 500 are being accepted. And so if you were to say, okay, well, this is how many there are at 200, if you were to quantify, or if you were able to extrapolate that out, say it's going to have 2.5 times that. At 500, there would definitely be enough for its own category, a strong category. But I don't want to worry like that. get your braggots entered. Like I said, I want to see a big braggot category at the Valkyries-Horn. There is no limit to entries. So if you want to enter your traditional, your melomel, your fruit and spice, go ahead and enter those too, but get your braggots in. And there's no limit on braggots. So if, as long as they're different. So if you've got a IPA braggot or a coffee porter braggot or a, maybe even a jalapeno cream ale braggot, enter, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, go ahead. Enter these in. I really want to see this. I'll give another update next week on where we're at, but I really want to see those braggots, coming on in. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking. Hey, I don't make a lot of braggots. I don't know if I have a chance. I've got some good news depending on how you look at it. Arguably the best competition braggot maker in the world, Josh Mahoney. This is the guy that scored double 50s, double perfect scores at the Mazer Cup with his braggots and has won something like 99 of the last 100 gold medals in braggots at the Mazer Cup, is not entering braggots into Valkyries-Horn. What? Why? Why do you say?
What happened?
That's because he is acting as the Valkyries-Horn entrant registrar. And so because of his leadership position at Valkyries-Horn, he decided not to enter the competition. He didn't want there to be any I would call it near sin, but occasion of perception that anything is not on the up and up. So he is not entering. So that means like I said, probably the world's best competition braggot maker is not going to be in this competition. So it is wide open to anybody that's got a half cracked, passion fruit shandy braggot they're working on. Let's get it in here and let's get it judged and let's see. If nothing else, you are going to get amazing feedback, maybe a medal and some unbelievable prizes. So get those braggots in and let's have a very strong braggot category at Valkyries-Horn.
Hot peppers and honey.
The next thing I was talking about was a special category. So if everyone remembers that at Iron B, we had a special challenge, which is how to make a mead with mint, vanilla, and pine. And we had some great tries with that. The slightly less experimental than that, Valkyries-Horn has a special capsamel category. So this is any mead made with a pepper or something from the capsaicin family. So that's everything from jalapenos, Anaheim, ghost peppers, and bell peppers.
Bell peppers, yeah.
Serrano peppers. You name it. Doesn't any kind of a pepper is going to be in this capsamel category. Now, to clarify for some folks who were asking, it does not mean a traditional with a pepper. It can absolutely mean I made a traditional and I added serrano peppers to it. No problem. But you might also have a Sangiovese piment with habaneros. Mm-hmm. Or you might have a Sizer with Anaheim, with roasted Anaheim peppers in it.
Oh, yeah.
All of those qualify as capsamels for Valkyries-Horn. So any mead that includes a pepper is going to be in this capsamel category. It's amazing. It is like, as Deborah said at the top of the show, it's one of those categories that has slowly been increasing in popularity. I mean, it's been around for years, but it's been increasing in popularity. And beyond the novelty of just saying, hey, here's a spicy drink. people are getting into crafting really balanced, really good ones that as Deborah said, the key is I'll have another. It's something I want another of. So Valkyrie's Horn, get those in as well. That is you get those braggots in, get those capsamels in. This is an amazing competition. Like I said, the registration's only been open for a couple of days and almost 200 entries already. I know that's gonna continue to go up here as summer winds down just in the next week or so, and people start putting their back to school hats on. And so, get those in now. It's going to be a great competition.
There's a friend.
If I could speak to this, Ryan.
Go ahead.
I'm really happy that there is a separate category for pepper meads because, these pepper meads, I feel like they're not always getting a fair shake at a lot of competitions. If you're entering a pepper mead, generally you enter that as like a fruit and spice or vegetable and spice method and kind of category. And as a judge, I will always put those at the very bottom of the flight. I want to judge those last so I don't blow out my palate. And you're going against stuff that is not hot and is really not exactly the same. The enjoyment I get out of like a mead with a nice, like apple pie spice blend is not the same as I get out of a mead with a just a little fiery kick at the end. They are very different meads, and to put them in the same category, not always, I think, fair to the entry in a spice mead category. So it's very fun that you're getting to put spicy meads up against spicy meads and not against a whole flight of other different, meads that might have that same character. It's great for people that have those and want to get a fair shake at them.
Yeah, and just to clarify again, there's no limit. So if you have 10 different capsamels or 10 different meads with peppers in them, you can enter all 10. So like I said, a Sangiovese with habanero, or a Sizer with roasted Anaheim, or a sweet traditional, a sack strength sweet traditional with
bell peppers.
With ghost
red peppers. Yeah.
You might you go ahead and enter all of them, and it'll be a really fun one. JD, you were going to say something here.
Yeah, Let me try to help inspire some of our listeners out there. Let's flip over to the culinary world here for a minute. Let me tell you something. One of the best meals that I love to cook here at the house is a nice baked halibut with some pineapple mango salsa on the top, a little bit of cilantro, a little bit of lime drizzled over the top. What about a pineapple mango salsa based like mead? Okay. There's a guy out there that's one of our listeners out there, Moises Martinez. This cat is a culinary wonder. If you ever go on his Facebook page, once in a while he'll put up stuff that he's cooked. Now this guy, he likes to play around in the kitchen as much as anybody. Okay, Moises, this is a challenge out to you, bud. I want to see a capsamel come from you, something along the lines of a tropical pineapple mango salsa type of thing. Something would be an easy drinker that you can enjoy along with some maybe a little plate of nachos. Come on, Moises. Let's get that one going. Again, Amaretti.com, and inspiration, that's where you could start right there. Go to Amaretti.com and just peruse through their category of products and figure out the flavor that you need to put this capsule together. Hey, yeah, let's do, I think we've got time for a couple of Facebook friends here before we end the show. But first, let's do this. Sunshine Energy Drinks. Sunshine Energy Drinks is good energy with this is what I like about this, no artificial nonsense. Every can of Sunshine rehydrates, replenishes, reorganizes, and regenerates the body and soul with electrolytes, vitamins, just the right amount of organic caffeine to keep you feeling your best. With 3 flavors to choose from, Blueberry Lemonade is somewhat of a wild card in their lineup. Many are quick to call it their favorite. When you crack one open, it's a rich blueberry aroma just jumps out at you and carries that deep berry flavor right down to the last drop. 2 parts blueberry, 1 part lemonade, and a generous dash of get up and go. Another one is gingerberry. The go-to flavor that started it all. This has a clean, crisp taste that won't wear thin. It's a natural flavor, far cry from the typical energy drink. And the guys at Sunshine think it's a good thing, memorable, but never overbearing. Gingerberry strikes the perfect balance between familiar and fantastic, and finally, clementine twist. This is a deliciously tangy, refreshing citrus taste that brightens your taste buds and puts a pep in your step. Naturally flavored clementine and grapefruit, this citrusy nectar refreshes and sparkles Sunshine Energy drinks. Check out the store locator at drinkthesunshine.com to find them locally. Drinkthesunshine.com. Hey, Sunshine, thanks for supporting the 2019 Iron B. Hey, let's wrap the show, guys. We got a few minutes left here with a couple of Facebook friends. Again, I failed to do my homework.
Yeah. JD, no surprise there, but we'll forgive you.
Yeah.
Before we, might have to forego too much of that tonight, because Jeff and I want to let listener land know about an unbelievable new key holder perk.
Oh, there you go.
Deborah Coletti was with us from Amaretti at the top of the show, and we hope that you got some inspiration. Actually, I'm not sure how you couldn't get any inspiration. Well, Deborah, and the folks at Amaretti are huge supporters of the mead community, and they love what we're doing here at the Iron B. They have provided us with a very limited amount of Amaretti gift cards, and we are going to give those out to new and some existing key holders. These are $25 gift cards, plus they have also given key holders a special discount code. So not only do you get the gift card, but then you get a discount on top of that. Jeff, I don't know, you might have something to add. He is, he's the key holder. He's the keyhold keeper.
The gatekeeper.
The key holder keeper.
He's the gatekeeper. Yeah.
And we've got some different ways here that you can earn one of these great gift cards by supporting the Iron B, by joining, or just by being a member of the Keyholder Club.
Yeah. So, we have a ton of key holders that have been very generous, and we definitely appreciate your support. I want to say right now, any key holders that are current members at the $5 level or higher, you're automatically going to get one. Just watch your mail, probably a couple weeks. You're going to see that gift card coming. As far as future key holders, the $20 members, if you're a brand new $20 member, there is no wait. The second we get your payment, you're going to get one of these in the mail. For our $10 members, the second month that you're a key holder member, that's going to be that card is going to be on its way to you. And for new $5 members, 4 months. After that 4th month, we're going to get you that key holder certificate. Now, that said, I know we have a ton of $2 members that joined for things like the Iron B, or just joined early on, and we appreciate your support too. If you guys want to jump to the $5 level, I'm not going to make you wait. The minute you get a $5 level as an existing member, I'm just going to send you this card myself. No weight involved. We appreciate you guys' support. We want to thank you guys for everything you do for the Meat House, the Iron Bee, and yeah. So we will have that in the mail to you as soon as those requirements are met.
And we'll get the details in the show notes as well, guys.
Absolutely, yes. And we have these in a very limited supply, so be sure to jump on this as soon as you can to make sure that you can secure one.
Good enough. I think we got time for one. Let's see if we can't get a Facebook friend in here, guys. Jeff, Ryan, let's throw it over to Ryan. Have you got one, bud?
Yeah. So
put you on the spot.
It's a question. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to give you guys the gist of it. And this is something Deborah talked about at the top of the show as well. Hard seltzers. So we had some folks asking us a couple of questions about kind of the hard seltzers. Well, Andrea, my lovely wife, went on a it's lake season in Minnesota, and I don't know if if you're in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, at least in those states, you understand what lake season means. And everybody's got a cabin, in the northern part of the state. You go up there and spend time, and beautiful, gorgeous. The Minnesota's the land of 10,000 lakes. Well, Andrea was up there. We were visiting friends. It was actually one of her friends' cabins that we went over to from our cabin just for a little day trip. And these hard seltzers are becoming very popular. Like White Claw is one of the big ones. I think Truly is another big one that you can't turn around without seeing these things. And they're typically, like 5% alcohol by volume. A lot of them talk about, 0 carbs, 0 sugar. They're relatively dry. They're not sweet or sugary the way that, sometimes you might have had Bartle and James or Mike's Hard Lemonade or Sky Blue or, the Jack Daniel's Country Poppers or, Zimas or things like that, way back when. But they're pretty clean tasting. So the question was kind of about how would you make like a hard seltzer mead. And first of all, if you wanted to make a hard seltzer, I was saying all the tap rooms around here, they all have hard seltzers. If I wanted to make a hard seltzer and I'm sitting at home, I'm going to put a shot of vodka in a glass, some seltzer water, and then maybe a splash of some sort of juice that I wanted. If I wanted to make a pomegranate, hard seltzer, I just shot of alcohol, shot of pomegranate juice, and fill it up with seltzer water, and it's a good day. Well, breweries can't do that. They're actually fermenting these. They're fermenting them with the government regulated or government defined grain. So they might be using sorghum or corn sugar or really light grains, then ultra filtering them. How that relates to mead, the first thing that jumps out to me is hydromels. I love hydromels for a lot of reasons. They are great for lake season. They are fast to make. They're easy to make. They're cheap to make. A 5-gallon batch, you might use 5 pounds of honey versus, you're making a big melomel or something or a big traditional and using 20 pounds of honey for that, that 5-gallon batch. So they're easy to make. They're less expensive to make. They're fast to make. And I think it's actually now with the hard seltzer trend where it is, this is a great way to make it's a great time to introduce people to mead via your hydromels, because you can do a lot of what they're doing. You can make a hydromel, 5% alcohol by volume, so roughly a pound of honey per gallon, give or take a little bit to get your gravity reading right. Ferment it pretty dry, and then add, if you want to add a little bit of flavoring, you can use some amaretti extract to get a little to essence it out and keep it really light in color, or you can just add some strawberries or whatever you want, and then carbonate. And a lot of these are carbonated, and carbonate them in the keg, or if it's totally dry and then you want to bottle carb it, you can do that as well. But that's just kind of where my head to when I saw the question about making a hard seltzer mead. I think that it is just, that's what you do. You go right to a nice light carbonated hydromel, and go from there. I suppose if you want to play around with it, maybe you could play around with some brewing salts, the way that maybe a brewer might if he's trying to dial in a water profile. But I wouldn't even worry about that unless you want to go to like level 10. I'll kick it over to you guys. What I guess number one, have you seen the hard seltzer trend? And then what are your first thoughts about a question about making a hard seltzer mead?
I have no idea what a hard seltzer is. But then again,
okay, Jeff.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I have seen the hard seltzers. They're here too. They're not quite as prevalent. It sounds like they're in every brewery down there. What I'm seeing here is more craft soda than hard seltzer. A lot of the breweries are, the small tap rooms, they want to be inclusive to kids, so they've got fruit-flavored sodas that they're offering along with their beer lines. That said, I think this is a fantastic idea. I talked a couple episodes back about the hibiscus and lime mead that I made based on some ideas I got off of Brett Guthrie's interview. And, like I said, that's 9 days pitch to glass, and that includes a day for letting the hibiscus and the lime and zest and things like that just kind of soak in and give up all their good flavors, and another day for carbonating in the fridge. This is ridiculously fast. It's a hot time of the year. If you're in my part of the country, it's going to stay hot and muggy and nasty until mid to late September. So you can have a great drink that's, very light, refreshing, easy to drink. It's very approachable for people that have maybe never even heard of mead. This is not hard. You throw in a pound of honey, like Ryan was saying, pitch some of that fake yeast from Omega. You're in business. You're off to the races, and you've got something drinkable in less than 2 weeks. This is a fantastic idea, and the palate is wide open. You can throw in fruit, you can throw in spices. You could make a darn nice pineapple jalapeno mead at 5% and have something really fun to drink at a backyard barbecue, along with maybe some pulled pork or.
Oh God, dude, you're making me hungry.
All kinds of good stuff.
Shit,
sorry, JD.
You're making me freaking hungry, dude. My God. Oh, jeez. So, as full as my to-do book, I'm gonna die before I'm able to produce all the stuff that I've got on my to-do book. I'm gonna have to send it off to one of you guys. I'm looking for something to do. I want a couple of kegs, all the time in my kegerator for summertime. And I don't want to, I've done a number of things. I need to keep a keg of stouts in line for my wife. That's her favorite. But I want something light and, just an easy drinker. And this absolutely sounds like something that I need to do. Sure. A couple of months, maybe now's the time, get started now, get this stuff brewing, get it in a keg, get the CO2 on top of it, just let it sit. And hey, there's nothing to say later on that, hey, you take a keg of that stuff, you want to throw a little hops and dry hop it before you hook it up to the kegerator and put it on tap.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Or just dry hop it as you're waiting.
Yeah.
I had, I think I talked about February or March, I made that blueberry and Simcoe hop mead. Heck yeah, that would work in this instance.
Absolutely.
That would be a fantastic summertime drinker.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There are so many varieties of hops you could play with, and fruit flavors and spice flavors. The field is wide open, guys. And if you're not getting inspiration off of this, you're just not listening hard enough.
You know what? We need to make a little. I'm going to save that, Jeff. I'm going to put that in the front of the show every time I play. You're just not listening. I love it. You know what? And that's what we're here to do, is inspire everybody. But hey, that's going to be a wrap for tonight, guys. Thanks for listening, and big thanks to Deborah Coletti from Amaretti for hanging out with us in this episode. Amaretti, you got to check these guys out, amaretti.com. Again, if you're sick and tired of dealing with the mess with the fresh fruit and all that, I mean, it's just, like I say, you get to my age and your tolerance level goes down. You just don't want to do all the cleanup. And like Jeff says, I mean, he's got a kid at home, wife, working, busy schedules, that kind of thing. I mean, Ryan's got a house full of kids, the whole 9 yards. I mean, Amaretti, we're talking natural flavors here. So we're not talking anything that's unnatural. All right, like that box of strawberries that Deborah was talking about. They're not going to taste the same from one month to the next, I guarantee it. So Amaretti.com, you got to check these guys out. Get some inspiration for your next mead project and look through their hundreds of flavors. Hey, in the meantime, happy mead making. That's it for this episode 134. Ryan's going to flip the lights out. Jeff's going to slam the door shut. And I'll tell you what, we'll be back next week with episode number 135 of The Mead House. We're gone.